fourth year there, we won the state championship. Can you see your dad? And he said, yes, sir. I said, well, if you're going to look at him, that's where you're going to do it from.
It was okay for the coach to grab you by the face mask and swing you around.
You don't know the relationship that coach has with that player. He's got it in him. He's just got to figure out what it is he wants to do.
I'm going to cheat on a rep and going through a drill, then I'm probably going to cheat on my wife.
Complicated, probably. Impossible, no.
I've talked to a lot of your former players, and you've been a father figure to a lot of them, and phenomenal for me. It was the roughest thing I'd done.
I don't need you, but, man, I enjoy being around you.
Hey out there, our world's full of people who just day in, day out do the right thing to help other people, and a lot of times they don't go looking for glory. They don't care who sees them or what kind of pats on the back they get. They're just there to serve. And I've known Barry Ryan for a long time, and I can tell you Barry has a real servant's heart. He has a passion for helping young people, just beyond what you really get to know until you get to know him pretty well. And we got pretty in-depth in our conversation, so I feel like I know Barry's heart. And I think that's going to be inspiring to you. You can tell a lot about a person by the fruit, and Barry's kids are the fruit of having a great dad. He is a great dad, a great coach, a lot of other things to a lot of other people, but I hope you'll enjoy it. One of my favorite ever dad stories comes out of this interview. It's a story about Barry going on a date, and he did one of those things that us guys, we can really be goofy sometimes, and he did, and his dad bailed him out. And I hope you'll enjoy hearing that dad story about the day Barry's dad bailed him out. But enjoy this interview with Coach Barry Ryan.
Welcome back to another episode of That's My Dad. I'm Scott Hilton. Got a guest in the studio today, Barry Ryan. Barry's an old football coach. So let's just get right into it, Barry. Let's talk football for a minute. Tell me, take me back to the good old days when you were a little boy. When did you get involved with football?
Well, I guess I always liked football because my dad was a high school coach, a basketball coach. But I can remember riding the bus to Inslee High School, getting to ride the bus home after they won. Didn't get to ride when they lost, but I was, probably good. But, I always felt like I probably wasn't good enough to play basketball talent-wise. Football, kind of, you find a niche, and there's always I think the cool thing about football is there's usually a position for just about anybody.
Yeah.
And I was offensive lineman, and that's kind of where I found my niche, I guess.
So back in the days before they were all 6'7", 450.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I remember we had an offensive lineman who was 6'4", 270, and we thought he was a giant.
I was telling somebody not too long ago, my senior year in high school, we had one kid on our team that weighed over 200 pounds.
Really? Yeah.
We thought he was big, but he really wasn't.
Yeah, we weren't. I was a 160-pound nose guard. So, I played, but you couldn't do that these days.
Those could be a handful, though.
I was a pest. So you got involved with your dad coaching, kind of introduced you. When did you start playing?
I guess back then we played youth league, and then we played in what was called the Wild League in the Huffman area, even though I went to Trussville, and then played junior high and high school.
At Hewitt-Trussville High School? What did football mean to you as a teenager growing up, a high school kid? What kind of impact did it have on you?
I think the things that you still try to express as a coach, it's just a chance to learn and how to get over stuff. You're not going to be successful every play. You're not going to be successful every game, and you get a chance to repeat, try again. Camaraderie with other, your other teammates, and
still have contact with your old buddies from high school?
Some, yeah, I do. We had I won't say how many years, but we had a reunion not too long ago, and it was fun to rehash some old games. Probably, like I was telling your dad earlier, we are all a lot better than we were back then.
Oh yeah, we've all
better
gotten
every
better.
year. Sure.
One of the things that happens when I get together with my guys that I played ball with is that day that we ran 35 100-yard sprints.
Yeah.
We probably ran 20.
Yeah, sure.
But by the time we're 60, 70 years old, we will have run 100. You know, it grows every year. The stories grow, and that's part of the camaraderie is the stories that you tell, and I think it's one of the valuable
I
things.
agree, and I think, too, that probably the video, or the film that we would be on, who's got a machine that could show it. So
yeah, I mean,
nobody can check up on us anyway.
That's right. We can be as good as we say we are, and nobody will ever know. These kids today, they have to prove it.
They do.
They're going to be on.
It's tough.
They're going to be on YouTube. I think my high school team has, like the team that I played on, I think we have 2 videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I scored a touchdown in one of them, so
that's impressive.
I can tell my kids that happened every game, and that's the only game it ever happened in.
I'm gonna tell you, talent-wise, I wasn't that good. I got to play, but I mean, I had to scratch and work to get to do that, and very average.
So how'd you end up coaching?
It's just something, like I said, with I guess it was ingrained with me when I was little with my dad. I really kind of struggled with what did I really want to do when I got out of high school. I kind of fumbled around in college a little bit, and then fell in love, got married, was working, and this thought, this is really not what I want to do, and what is it I do want to do.
You didn't want to fall in love, or you didn't want to work?
Well,
just clarify there.
Neither one of those. I didn't lay that out well. I didn't want to work the way I was working.
Okay, I got you.
It was, and I felt like, what do you really want to do with life? And I felt like getting into coaching was something that I enjoyed the sport. I enjoyed football, basketball, all of it, and I felt like that's what I needed to do. So I went back to school, got my degree, and started coaching.
Went back, got your teacher's degree.
Yeah. And actually, I was coaching while I was doing that at Trussville.
Okay.
Got to do that while I was going through school, and I went to UAB, got my degree, undergraduate from there, and then master's from Alabama and all that. But and I think I really, I hadn't had that question asked of me in a long time. It's been a long time since I thought about it.
So you started coaching in the 90s? Early 90s, late 80s?
Actually, it's late 80s. First year I coached was at Thompson High School in 1988, fall of '88.
Well, I wasn't born then, but I heard it was some good times.
It was good. We had face mask and everything.
They'd already gotten rid of the leather helmet smart.
I didn't know this was a comedy show.
So you're part of a state championship team
at Clay Chalkville. Yeah, I was the offensive line coach there. We started that split off of Trussville, and we had the 4th year there. We won the state championship. That was a lot of fun. It was really exciting. I mean, still have a lot of contact with those kids. I say kids; they're
they're grown,
in their 40s. But
grown men now.
What's funny about that experience was you get in such a playoff mode, I guess is what we called it. You don't really get to you enjoy the win, but your mind immediately goes to the next game. And who you're playing, and you find out on the bus, okay, so-and-so beat so-and-so, so that's who we got next. Well, we were, back in those days, they played at Legion Field, and we were coming back from Legion Field, and just being in that mindset, we started talking about who we played the first game of the next season, which was Etowah. And Carnell Williams was, of course, he was going to be a senior. Etowah had won the state championship in 5A. We won it in 6A. So we're not even back to the school yet. To celebrate the win, and we're talking about how are we going to stop Carnell.
You've just won the state championship.
And we're still coach mode. So
that happens.
So we backed off of that a little bit and enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun.
Isn't it funny that those of us who had the good fortune of being able to play high school ball, the things that we remember about it, as my wife says, you can remember what happened in the third quarter.
Yeah,
1983. One of my guys I played summer baseball with kicked a field goal over my head.
Right.
I remember the whole thing, and she said, "Why can't you remember to take the trash out every Thursday night?" And so
it's what's important to you. I guess
it's something that gets it ingrained in you. What did you like about coaching? What really attracted you to get you?
I think originally it was the game, but as I realized what was available, I say available, as I realized that it quickly became relationships. And again, the older I get, the more I appreciate relationships that the thing about sports that or especially football, is that you go through the gamut of emotions in a day, in a practice, in a game, from being ecstatic and excited and everybody's high-fiving and hugging and to anger, all of the emotions. The pain of getting, losing the ball game and hugging on kids and when that happens. The finality of the last game of the season, and the emotions that the kids go through, and it hit me because I'm thinking, well, I'll be back to coach next year, but these guys are done, and it's a season and I think it helped prepare me for a lot of things in my life that are seasonal. You try to enjoy while you're there. Mm-hmm. Enjoy where you are while you're there, and that's something I've tried to express to my kids, and I've learned from my kids is, man, what a gift when you can do that, and you don't have to long for the old days, but you can enjoy where you are while you're there. That's what I've got out of it.
For everything there is a season.
That's exactly right.
So how has it changed in terms of the culture of being able to coach? Is there a different approach to reaching kids now than there was in 1988?
I think it's probably more challenging in the sense that, you and I come from an era of you didn't question. Mm-hmm. If coach told you to do something, you did it, and there wasn't any debate.
Right.
And I think now the challenge is, and I think it's good. I think parenting's the same way. I think you have to explain here's why we're doing this. And here's why it's going to work, and this is why. And you sell them on the concept of, or if it's a scheme that you want to run, or a certain game plan of how we can, how are we going to win this game tonight. And you sell them on, this is why it's going to work, and this is why this is what we need to do. You think about what kids bring to practice every day.
Has that changed?
Maybe you just see it from a different avenue, of a different vantage point, because I knew all that was going on, I guess, when I was people. But you got guys that are bringing hard stuff going on in their life, heavy stuff, and to ask them to lay that down and not think about it for 2 hours, not everybody can do that. You think about in the 80s, 90s, maybe growing up where you had the old saying about being raised by a community.
Mm-hmm.
I think you got a lot of young people nowadays that are, they don't have that. They don't have direction, and you don't know when they go home, what are they getting?
Yeah.
What's available to them as far as structure. A lot of kids are going home and doing they don't have a lot of direction. I know, I had a dad that made sure I was where I was supposed to be and doing what I was supposed to be doing, and we don't all, not everybody has that. And it, I think a lot of times a coach takes that place.
Yeah, you've done that a lot. I've talked to a lot of your former players, and you've been a father figure to a lot of them, and a lot of those guys came up in what I call father-deficient environments.
Maybe a lot of that was going on back in the day, and we just didn't recognize it like we do now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about one player in particular that, he was raised by his grandmother, and his mom was in the house. But I can remember taking kids home that there might not be in the apartment complex. There may not be that many men that are there doing what men need to be doing for their teenagers, and holding them accountable and being the dad that they need to be. But I think now it's maybe you do recognize it maybe a little bit more, and I don't know if it's that I'm older and I see that. Maybe I was young and naive and didn't recognize it maybe like I should have, but maybe I don't know, maybe because I didn't experience that.
Yeah, I think we only know what our own reality is. But do you recall maybe early on a kid or two that you realized, hey, this guy?
Oh yeah.
How do you approach that? What do you do for that young guy?
And again, this was him telling me. This player I'm thinking about went into coaching and teaching, and became a school administrator. But he called me one day and said, "Coach, I'm going to apologize." And I said, "For what?" He said, "I don't know how you didn't. How do you handle these seventh graders?" And he was coaching a junior high basketball team. I started laughing and said, "There you go. You figured it out." But no, I mean, but he made the comment to me that I used to have our Like when I was coaching offensive line, or if I was a basketball coach, I would have my position players over to the house, cook out, and just relax and have a good time during the season. And he said, Coach, I didn't realize. He said, I looked around your house and was like, I think I can have this.
Really?
And he came from, he was an apartment kid. It was just didn't have a whole lot. And, for him to get to recognize that and say, hey, I think I can do this too. And I think, to me, what I've tried to do as with students, players, kids, let them see what potential, what possibilities are, what are opportunities that may have available to them, and help them to get there. And if you can open some of those doors or help them create opportunities for themselves, and you can do this. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but they just haven't had it modeled to them. And I think hopefully as a coach you modeled what it's like to, and not that you're making a ton of money, but you're supporting your family and you're putting food on the table, and that's what they want to see. If you've never seen that, how do you know how to do it?
That's right. You're casting a vision for what their life can be like, and you've done that for a lot of guys. Some of the guys that you cast that vision for were your own kids, though. You coached your own boys. What kind of dynamic does that create? How do you handle that kind of thing?
I always tried to be dad and coach for two different people, even though they weren't. And I remember my oldest son, the first junior high game he played football. He said, how'd I do? And I said, well, as your dad, I am so proud. You just no idea. Now, as a coach, we got some things we need to work on. But you want to separate those two. And always, I felt like I tried to do a good job of, first of all, being realistic with my players, and my kids were my players at one time. Being realistic with what they're, what are we trying to get out of this? It's not the college scholarship. It's just learning how to, all the things that we think high school football or high school basketball or high school athletics can afford us or teach us. It's work ethic. It's how to practice, how to overcome adversity, how to get back up when you've been knocked down, how to handle success. A lot of people don't know how to do that, and so all of those things to me were something that I got to model for my kids as they were. My three, when they were old enough to pick up a football, they were retrieving extra points. They were the ball boys. They were the whatever. And I thought it was kind of cool. There's not too many jobs that you can actually watch Dad work, and watch Dad in a what was a high stress situation. Watch how he deals with difficult situations, how he deals with success, how he deals with failure. I thought that was kind of neat for them to get to grow up in that. And I guess if you ask them, they could give their own opinion of it. But it's to me, I think there's just not many jobs where you get to do that. And I think it was neat for them to get to see me deal with maybe be hard on a kid, but also love him, and they saw that whole full circle. And I thought it was kind of cool for my players to see how I dealt with my kids.
Exactly.
And that I could be hard on them, but I still loved them. And I think it just helped create relationships.
Yeah, so your kids, the boys went to practice with you.
Oh, yeah.
I hear that a lot from coaches, and I guess for coaches hopefully watching, that's a great idea. I mean, what other job can you do that with? And I'm sure there's some drawbacks. There's some things you probably don't want them to be exposed to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that can happen. But I remember my youngest one time at practice got a little bit too close, and I was thinking I was going to have a long. How am I going to make this right with his mama, because he got run over? And fortunately, he was okay, and there wasn't any bruising.
Was it one of those mom don't need to know this?
Yeah, mom don't need to know about this for a while anyway. Yeah, till the swelling goes down, we'll figure out something. But I always thought, and again, they can tell you, it's just a unique way to growing up.
Yeah, I think about the days when you and I are the same generation, when it was okay for the coach to grab you by the face mask and swing you around. At what point, though? At what point is it okay to get in a kid's face and just really chew him out?
I'm gonna tell you my thoughts on that. And I've defended coaches that I've seen do that, and here's why. I said, I had a parent one time go, can't believe that coach did that. And I said, before you have too much judgment, you don't know the relationship that coach has with that player.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, is when I go back to the most important thing in a coach and player relationship is the relationship. If you believe that I'm helping you, I can challenge you pretty hard. And if I've earned your trust, I think I can challenge you pretty hard. I think it's the same thing with my own children.
Mm-hmm.
If they believe, if I've built that relationship and I've earned their trust, I can ask them to do a lot.
What kind of things do you have to do to build that, to earn the trust? I think
it's consistency and to be there regularly, be there every day.
So
say what you mean and mean what you say.
Yeah.
Don't contradict yourself. I never went over the top with a lot of rules, but the ones we had, we're going to adhere to, and we're going to develop a standard. You hear, successful coaches all the time saying this is where we're trying to go, and I'm pushing you to be the best you can be. Coach Saban's brilliant at it.
So
all those guys.
Seems to me that the key is, first of all, consistency. You being consistently who you are, so they don't have a moving target.
That's exactly right.
They know what to expect.
Certainly.
And then long-term consistency is important. That's persistency, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
And then that builds a relationship. And after you build a relationship, then you can be more intense with whatever motivation you need.
I've had a player one time fumbled a ball right in front of me, and I knew it tore him up.
Mm-hmm.
I put my arm on him and said, hang in there. Then you got one that might fumble, and just because of the relationship, and it might be, you question how they're doing things.
So you think the key to being to the modern day coach, I know it wasn't always this way, but to the modern day coach, do you think the key really is that the players buy into who you are personally, that you personally care about them? And I'm going to follow that up with a question. We have so many young guys who are great athletes who are coming out of homes where there's no father figure. The only dad they know is the one that showed up when he heard they were getting a scholarship offer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So are we in an age where coaches are going to have to understand that those guys, to respond to you the way you want them to respond, or you're going to have to go beyond?
Okay, so I think it's important for a player to realize that you care more about them as a person than you do a player. Mm. And you care more about them 5 years from now than you do 5 plays from now. And if you can if you could earn that, or I don't want to say if you can sell that, because it's not a sales job. It's got to be a real thing, because kids can see through phony a mile away. If you can establish that and have them understand that you do care about them, and they're, again, 5 years from now, 15 years from now, you're more important to me than this ball game is.
Specifically, you got some examples, some things maybe you did that.
It's one of those things where you got somebody that maybe they're not 100% and we're not going to play, even though it might short-term help the team, but long-term it's not going to help the student. Or if you hold somebody to a grade standard and they don't meet that, and it would be easy to say, let's overlook that and go get a win. What message are you sending to the rest of them? And that to me is, those are kind of general examples, but that's kind of how I see that. Did you spend a lot of time with your players away from the practice field, away from the football? When you can, and again, it depends on where you are in life. And I tried to guard my time with my family.
How do you make sure that happens?
That can be hard. And again, having your kids involved when they're young, involved in practice, involved, having my players over to interact with my family, and I think it's hard to do that any other way. It's time consuming. It's probably more time consuming now than it was, when I got into it. It's to me, it's always been about, like I said, I realized this early. It's always more about this is just a practice for for what your life's going to be like. And we get this short window of 4 months in a season from now, even though now you probably go more year round, but counting the weight room and all that other kind of stuff. But you're really that intense part of the season of preseason training and workouts to actual practice, the games, and maybe if you're lucky enough to make the play or good enough to make the playoffs, you might have 4 months of really, I mean, and you can get real close, and then all of a sudden it's over. So, there's a lot more down the road. And, like, you don't want that to be the apex of your life is your high school football experience or basketball or whatever it may be. Yeah. Hopefully it's preparing you for bigger and better things. Yeah,
we were talking about how so many guys put their high school football team in their obituary. But that's 4 years of out of 80. Yeah. And that's all you got that's all you can say. I mean, I'm sure it's important. It's great, but have something beyond that.
Well, yeah, and again, I think successful coaches, when I say successful, it's not always necessarily scoreboard successful, but successful in building relationships. Again, I'm more concerned about you 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
And you have a lot of guys call you up even today that you coached 20 and 30 years ago.
Yeah, and that's very humbling. I've got one of my players that I've thought about him a lot while we were talking. That same one that called and said he was wanted to apologize for the way practice used to get. It lives in Australia now, and his son is 11, I think, or 10, and he was one of those that it's fun seeing him be dad that he didn't get. Yeah, and that's really what I've always told players. Kids that I've helped throughout the years is, the goal of this is for you to be the husband your wife deserves, the parent, the dad that your children deserve. Yeah. And what can we do to help make that happen? And football, basketball, all that's it's just an avenue. It's a what do you call it?
It's an analogy,
an apparatus in which to exercise your faith, your all of that.
Yeah, we had one. I did background checks on all you guys that I've interviewed, so I kept hearing this theme from people that I've talked to, and they would say, "Coach taught me that if I was going to cheat on a rep in the weight room, or if I was going to cheat on a rep and going through a drill, then I'm probably going to cheat on my wife, and I'm probably going to cheat on my children."
What kind of standard you gonna have?
Yeah, what's the standard? There's so many analogies. Football, high school football is all I got to do. Was just phenomenal for me. It was the roughest thing I'd done. Well, maybe not totally, but it was pretty tough. But so many life lessons. I wanna kind of get back to your dad.
Okay.
Tell me about your dad's kind of an interesting guy. I've met him a time or two. And, he's a musician, and among other things, and pretty well known. But tell us about your dad and your relationship with him.
My dad was and is. I mean, he's 83 and still works. And he does what he loves to do, which is entertaining. And he's always been entertaining. It was a unique growing up because, again, I got to see him as a coach, and then I got to see him. I used to joke I was the head roadie for 3 on a String, which really wasn't much. I mean, I carried
that's his group.
But I mean, as far as the roadie job.
By the way, we're recording in Alabama. That's a very well-known group in Alabama and all over the country.
And I'll brag, they were inducted into the Alabama Music Hall of Fame last April, which is pretty cool. But being a part of that, but again, getting to see him work, I would go and set up the mic stands and the cords and the speakers and monitors, and I got to drive the van for the band, and that was kind of a neat experience as a teenager. But getting to watch how he worked a crowd, how it was fun to watch them. Sometimes you might have a crowd that wasn't really into what they were doing, but he would keep pulling, and he used to use that analogy. It's like, calling a song is sort of like calling a play. We got to find something to reel them in and get them on board, and to see them do that was really cool. And even now when I go watch them play, I'll watch other people that are watching them and say, oh, they're going to really enjoy this next bit.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
But he involved you.
Oh, yeah.
You and your brother and everything he did.
Certainly.
What do you think life would have been like had he just said, okay, I've got my career, it's pretty good. You got to stay at home. And
I don't know. I don't want to. And I will say this. There were a lot of times when he would be gone and that we couldn't go. I mean, school nights, obviously. I can remember hearing him get in, and it was, you play when people pay you to play, and that might coincide with a Friday night football game for me when I was in high school, where he might get to see the first half and had to leave, and that was you could pout about that if you want to, but he was providing for his family, and when you get older, you recognize the bigger picture and say, okay, yeah, what we got to experience was unique, and it wasn't like Dad worked an 8 to 5 job and then he was home the rest of the night. It was usually he was going to work when we were coming in. So especially when he started doing that full time. Yeah. So I'll tell you something my dad did that I would never forget, and I hope I would pray that I've done something like this. Maybe not near as cool, I know, with my kids, but my first car date. I had a car date with a girl. I was excited. I was extremely nervous. I'd probably taken 3 showers, and then I'd sweat again, and I had to go back and take another shower.
Did you write down everything you're going to talk about?
I was scared to death. So we go on the date. We end up at a movie, and I had this panic thought and then I reached down for my pockets. No keys. I've locked the keys in the car. Well, there's no cell phones in those days. You're going to make a great impression. And you may have to get somebody to define what this is to most of anybody listening to this. Is I had to go out. I had to say, hey, would you like to leave a concession stand to my date? So I go out in the lobby and find what's called a payphone back in those days.
For those who don't know, you put a quarter in it or a dime, and
then you pray whoever you're calling answers.
Yeah.
I called. Dad asked, what is it? I said, man, I locked the keys in the car. And he goes, all right, where are you? I'm at the movie. He said, all right, don't worry about it. So I go back in. I watch the rest of the movie. We come out of the movie. We're walking, and there's the group of people that are waiting to see the next show. He's in that group. He tosses me the keys. She's never had any.
He played it off.
Played it off brilliant.
He protected you from the embarrassment.
Man, he could have roasted me.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And I've told him that story. He says, yeah, I do remember that. But it's I just thought that was.
So instead of coming in and making a big deal of it,
hey,
or just telling you, no, I can't.
Had earned.
Yeah,
no doubt.
He understood.
He did, and
that even this teenage boy who doesn't have much relationship sense
going on at all.
It's important to him.
It is,
and he put himself in your shoes and.
And I thought that was, and it's given me a lot of empathy although maybe some of my early players may think otherwise, and even my own boys, but you appreciate the teenage mind is.
Yeah, this boy is, it's out for lunch. It's on lunch break all the time. I say when they turn 15, the brain goes on vacation. And it returns when they're 25.
They're intelligent, and
we got some interns in the studio. They're all
teenagers are intelligent and moronic all at the same time.
Yeah. I think back to when I was 23, 24, 25. I didn't have good sense.
No,
and not at all. And it's particularly with relationships. But that's cool that your dad protected you, and the girl your date never knew.
Never knew.
I mean, he just tossed him to you, played it off, acted like he was in the line.
Act like I didn't know him.
That's great story.
I did that one time when I was coaching a basketball game, and he was behind me yelling at the referees, and the ref goes, hey, who's this guy? And I said, who are you talking about?
I don't know.
And he
him.
pointed at my dad, and I said, I don't know that guy.
You pulled Peter on him, didn't you?
Yeah.
I've never seen him.
I denied him, yeah. But it was, and he would have wanted me to do that. I mean, that was.
How much of your dad is in you in terms of being a father?
I don't know. I hope a lot. I really do. I admire him. I do.
To do this, I'm going to give you an opportunity because we you don't have to do this, but would you like to pay honor to your dad? Would you just like to speak to him?
Yeah, Dad, I just, I love you. I'm thankful, very thankful for a lot of things with you, but I think more than anything, just the example that you've been in my life, how to work, how to love, how to be passionate towards your family. More than anything, how to love your wife. You've been a great example of what family is and what family's all about. And thank you.
What else would you say to the kid who's out there, and our target audience is really guys who are in father deficient homes, we call them. That's a term we've coined here. What do you say to that kid?
First of all, I think they understand the hurt that is there. I think you have to deal with your anger for whatever reasons Dad's not there. First of all, let's deal with, there is hurt and there's anger. Second, it doesn't have to stay that way. And then I think third, like I said earlier, you got, hopefully there's a young lady out there somewhere that you need to be preparing for. There's lives that are not been conceived yet that are counting on you getting this right. Yeah. And you what are you doing now that's going to make their life what it ought to be? And that's where I try to, again, especially with young men that have not had what I had.
You've worked with a lot of some of the schools where you've coached. The kids have really had active dads.
Yeah, sure.
What are some of the mistakes you think dads of athletes make?
I'll share a quick story with you, and I know it was unintentional, and that was why I was able to do it. I was coaching the junior high basketball team, and my point guard, his dad shows up midway through the second quarter, and he starts coaching him from the stands with the kids dribbling the ball, looking up to Dad, and I'm sure the dad had coached him in Little League or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I substituted. I said, had him sit down beside me, and I said, "Can you see your dad?" And he said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, if you're going to look at him, that's where you're going to do it from. It's right here on the bench." After the game, I called the dad over and said, "Look, I know the last thing you want to do is hurt him, but here's what's happening. You got to let the coach coach." And you're talking about parents. Let the coach coach. I was listening to the guy that used to be Frank Martin was the basketball coach at South Carolina for years, and they had a Final Four team. He said, let the coaches coach when his own kids, and he's a college coach, very successful college coach. His kids are playing, junior high. He said, "I don't say a word to the coach. I let them coach." And I think that's backing out, and it helped me as a coach do that when my kids were playing. Let their coach coach them. We've all seen the parent that embarrassed the kid, mm-hmm. and that's. I just your heart breaks for that child, the kid that's or the player that's dad is up there acting like a nut and being and probably has great intentions, but it doesn't come off that way, and it's a hard thing to watch a kid go through. Yeah,
it's embarrassing for some kids.
No doubt.
I had to calm my wife down a couple of times. She's pretty intense about when my kids were playing sports.
Moms can be that way, no doubt.
Yeah, there were a time or two I wouldn't sit with her because I was afraid she'd embarrass me. She yelled at the referee, and that was upward basketball. It was a volunteer Sunday school teacher. She's calling him out for missing a foul.
It's a tough job. It's a tough job. I think a lot of that can be headed off as a coach. You have a preseason meeting, and I used to always do that. Say, "Hey, look, this is the standard that we want to adhere to, and this is how we want to do it." I talked a lot about not everybody's got somebody to come and plead their case. So mm-hmm. I'll be glad to talk to you, but we're not going to talk about playing time. We're not going to talk about plays or what you thought mm-hmm. we should have ran. And everybody's got their opinion. And but again, if you want, I think if you want your child to get the most out of it, or your player, your athlete to get the most out of it, you got to trust the coaches. And again, I think it's the coach's job too these days to earn that, earn it from the parents, earn it from the players, earn it from the administration, earn it from any stakeholder they got.
Yeah.
And I think that's incumbent on the coaches to do that. And I think that's where it's different than it used to be. Where used to that was kind of given.
Yeah.
Now I think it has to be earned, and that's good. As a young man, my grandfather never missed a game that I coached until he was he had gotten, health-wise wouldn't let him do it. But my dad, same thing, and I knew, and this was good, I knew when I messed up that was going to be the first call. What were you thinking? And usually he would let me tell him, and I would do it first. I never forget a basketball game that I got asked to leave because they have a rule that if you get too technicals, you can't stay out on the court anymore. I won't share exactly what he said, but it was if your team had not had an idiot as a coach, you would have had a chance to win. And we lost a game in overtime, and I didn't get to see the end of it.
Wow,
and
I
knew, and I called and I said, yeah, you're right. I have no. And then he followed it up with, and this is what I try to do. It don't have to stay that way. You got tomorrow. You can start fixing it, and that's the thing to me about sports and it applies to any endeavor. As bad as it was today, it don't have to be that bad tomorrow.
Did you do anything during your career that you had to go back and apologize to your players for?
Yeah, but I think I did it then. I really don't have any long-term regrets. I think one of the things that I would want every player that I ever coached to know is how much I appreciated the effort that they gave. I hope I did everything I could to earn their trust, and I'm sure I was lacking with some. No doubt at all. And it's like if you coach long enough, the wins kind of you remember those games, not the ones you got beat, but the ones you lost.
Mm-hmm.
I still have 5 or 6 of those that I why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that?
Yeah.
But as far as that, the relationship with the players, it wasn't on them. It was, hopefully we tried to get that worked out in real time.
What do you think if a lot of people aren't into legacies, and you may not be, but if you had to have a legacy as a father to your boys, what would that legacy be?
That they are self-sufficient, that they are men of God, that they I think I've said this before, that they don't need me, but I'm glad they want to be around me. How about that?
They don't need you, but you're glad they want to be around.
Yeah, because they're.
I think that sums it up. That's pretty much the fathers. That's what we should be striving for. What would you like for your former players to say Coach Ryan was to me?
I hope challenging, inspirational, maybe. Enjoyed it. It was fun, and it's a game. And don't lose sight of that, because it's a game. And again, hopefully that he cared more about us as people than he did players.
So there's some phrases that coaches like to have. One of yours is, if you don't discipline yourself, somebody else will do it for you. Yeah. What are some others? Can you off the top of your head?
I stole all these from other coaches, but be quick and don't hurry. That was John Wooden used to say that all the time, and make each day your masterpiece. That was one that my dad, being a basketball coach, impressed on me. And he was in the Wooden era. Old people know who John Wooden was, but won 10 national championships in 12 years at UCLA, and every coach in America just hung on everything that he said. in those days. But I think now, you guys like Coach Saban talk about being the best version of yourself. I always talk about how do you honor your parents, and that's by being the best version of you can be, and that's in all phases of your life.
You mentioned that. Is it still important for you, for your dad to show that he's proud of you? And
oh yeah, I think always.
You think you'll ever outgrow that?
I don't. Hope not.
Yeah,
I don't. And I would. Not that I feel like I have to, impress my dad, but obviously you want him to be proud of the man you are.
Mm-hmm. We want to share with you what your three boys and some of your players had to say about you, and see if it's consistent with what you.
This might be tough.
What you would like for them to say. You've not seen these yet.
No.
Hope you enjoy them.
Barry Ryan. Oh man, I don't even know where to start. But one thing I can say about Coach is he is far more than a football coach to me. He has been more like a life coach. Our relationship surely extends far beyond the X's and O's of the game. At the age of 40, Coach is still making time for me. You've always made me feel valued. You've always given me the space to be myself. Man, again, just the love that you shown me has been unconditional. And I thank you for that. Thank you for all the words of advice. I actually want to share a piece of advice that you gave me here now. You told me back when I was 17 years old to never make my decisions based on the opinion of a person who stands to gain from that decision. Still living by that advice today, passing it on to my son, passing it on to the students that I get to teach today. Again, man, I would not be an educator if not for you and the role that you've played in my life. Thank you for being a positive example. Being a positive example of a father, of a husband, of a coach, just of a man in general. Thank you for being that for me. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Coach, keep doing what you're doing. All the best. And man, I love you. Thank you. Thank you for all you've done for me.
Coach Ryan has no doubt been one of the biggest influences on my life. He is one of the men that God used to show me what it's like to be a man, what it is to sacrifice for the Lord so much, like Coach Ryan has, to sacrifice for his family and for those around him so much. Taught me how to work hard, taught me how to deal with difficulty. Maybe most importantly, taught me how to be a smart aleck for the sake of building relationships with male friends, which is often how we speak to each other. I coached high school football for 10 years, almost entirely because of the impact that Coach Ryan had on me. And I dreamed of the opportunity of having just a fraction of an impact on young men the way that he had on me. He may not remember this. He's actually the one that asked me to come coach with him after I graduated college. And that was one of the great blessings of my life, was to be able to get closer to him and the opportunity to learn more from him and coach alongside him for those great years. There's not many more important things for a teen male especially, than to see men that are doing it right, that are sacrificing for the Lord and for their wife and for their children, and that just love everyone that they're in contact with, and also to be confident that that man loves me. And goodness, all of us that knew Coach Ryan, if we knew anything, knew that he loved us. That was always so clear, and I still know that today so well, and I've known it every moment, even the moment when I jumped the deep drag and the deep post got behind me and he let me hear it, as he should have.
Still mad about
I
that.
still knew, and everyone did, as he was coaching us hard, that he was doing so because he loved us and he cared about us. And just yesterday, he asked me to go get lunch this week because he is still loving me, even though he hasn't coached me in 20 years, and we haven't coached together in 5 years or more. But we still have this close relationship because of him, because of his desire to continue leading men, to lead me, and to disciple me to the Lord. And he has been doing that, and there will be no end in sight because of how well he loves people, and the reality that he is the kind of man that God is laying out for many of us young men to watch and to see how it's done. Love you, Coach. See you soon.
Hey, Dad. I just want to thank you for all that you did for me, pouring into me growing up. Even though you've apologized over the last couple of years for any mistakes you may have made or how hard you might have been, I wouldn't change any of it, because you turned me into the man I am today, the husband I am. And you never said it to me, but I heard you say it to other guys a lot of times, that you were riding them so hard and that you were being so tough because you wanted them to be the kind of husband and the kind of dad that their family deserved. And I'm thankful that you turned me into that you did what you thought was best, that you gave me a godly example, and that you led your family in a way that showed me how to do that. I love you, Dad, and I'm thankful to be your son. Thanks.
Hey, I know we're supposed to talk about how Dad has been a dad to us and a coach to us, and the thing I kept thinking about is that you can't talk about Dad, Barry, Coach Ryan without him being a dad and a coach. That's what he is. He coaches his players. He's a dad to his players. He was a dad to me. He coached me, and not just in sports but in life. And I think that was the best thing about growing up with a coach as a dad, is that you're constantly forcing, it might be the best word, but I guess it is. He was constantly forcing us to be our best self. If you're not doing what you should be doing, you're being coached. If you needed somebody to talk to, he was there as a dad. And I saw that my whole life growing up. I mean, ever since I can remember, we had players come over to our house. He's constantly talking to players now on the phone when we're hanging out. He'll get a call from, somebody, a former player in Australia who he's been a father figure to, and in all the ways. And it's not, I don't think it's the people to say those things about him just to say them. Like, it really is that case. And I have to tell him all the time, like, that I don't call former coaches to tell them about my life. Like, you approach life in a unique way. You do it the only way you know how to do it, and everybody in your life benefits from that, and we all appreciate it, and we're all so thankful for it. So I just want to say thank you for coaching me and for being a dad and a father to me for so many years, and I look forward to many, many more.
Hey, Dad. Such an honor to be able to talk to you about you and the impact that you've made in my life and many others. I can't tell you how much I love and respect you and how thankful I am for you and the way that you have led our family and cared for us and put on display a loving marriage. And one of the things that I think about a lot when I think about Barry Ryan, my dad, is the wide influence that you have had in men's lives and women. All the teams that you've coached, all the boys that you've raised have been influenced in such a godly and positive way by the way that you build relationships with people. You don't just coach boys and girls. That's not what you've just done. But you've cared about each one of your players. And to sit and listen to you tell stories about students and players you've had before, it's just so evident to see how much you care about them. The way you talk about them now, and also the way that we have always run into a past player of yours, and just the joy that comes upon their face when they see you. You're not somebody that people avoid. You're somebody that people are attracted to and they love, and it's because of who you are. And I'm so thankful to be your son. I'm so thankful for how you continue to be an incredible father to me. To just call and say, I've missed talking to you. What's going on? That means so much to me. And I love to get those calls. The way you take care of Bennett, Sanders, and Ellie, to watch you be a granddad, not just to them, but to your others as well. It brings so much joy to me that my kids get to know you and get to be loved by you and cared about by you and spend time with you. And so watching, growing up the way that I did, that all of us did, with you as an incredible dad, but also a coach, was just such a great experience. It was never just us, but it always felt like our family was open to whoever wanted to be a part of it. And to getting, at the bottom of a pile on the football practice field when I was really young and coming out the other side okay, to watching you get technicals and kicked out of games, to seeing and hearing your best halftime and in-game speeches, and seeing you answer the phone call of somebody you hadn't talked to in 10, 15 years and give them, they're seeking advice from you, wisdom from you. It's just so awesome. You're such an incredible dad. I love you so much, and I hope you are feeling loved right now.
for the guy who's about to walk out on his kid, what does it feel like to have your son say, "I'm so proud to be your son"?
Blessed is the word that comes to mind. And I guess encouragement is, your son, your daughter they need your best, and they're worth it. Whatever you're doing that's you think might be more important,
It ain't.
put a price on that.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
You've invested in a lot of kids. We didn't have time to even unpack it all. There's a whole lot more we could unpack. But thank you for what you've done as a father figure, as a coach, as a mentor to so many kids. And it's my honor to be able to give you that gift. I think sometimes we don't communicate to our dads those kind of things. So I'm glad that we were a part of you being able to know.
Man, this is. I usually have stuff to say, but it's powerful, and I will say this to you, Scott. Thank you for this, picking this mantle up, and carrying it, because it needs to be done. And it's be praying for you and how this goes forward, and then whatever we can do to lift y'all up and be a part of this. It's a task that needs to be taken on, and admire you for the way you're doing it.
Thank you. My motivation is, I'm retired, and this is a lot of work, and it costs a little bit, and sometimes I wonder, why am I doing this? But every time I think, why am I doing this, I think back to that kid who said, my dad don't want me.
Yeah. And
I don't want to ever have another kid say, my dad don't want me. So if we can do anything.
Yeah. And I think that's ultimately, I think that's why a lot of guys get into coaching, is because they want people to have that. They want, especially men, because and I think maybe in our society that's gotten lost a little bit, but men being fathers, men raising their children, and again, like I've said, being the dad that your children deserve, showing them how to love their mom, how to respect a lady, how to all the things that men need to pass on to their sons. And there's a lot of people that don't get that, and we have to stand in that gap, and we have to fill that void, and then hopefully you can change that cycle. If it's one at a time, that's fine.
You change the life of a boy, you change the life of a father, you change the life of a father, you change the life of a family, you change the family, you change the city, you change the city, you change the state.
Yeah, sure.
You've changed the whole entire culture if you can influence that kid.
Yeah, I always pictured in my mind as I think of it when it's a player, somebody I helped raise or somebody I coached, and you envision them planting that flag in the ground and saying, "As for me and my house," how powerful is that? And how strong is that? And it's really a blessing to be a small part of it.
Yeah, you've been a big part of a lot of guys planting that, so we appreciate you. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, thank you.
That'll conclude this episode of That's My Dad, where we're inspiring fathers to become great dads, and we're seeking to break cycles of generational fatherlessness to help kids grow up with the kind of dad Barry and I had. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.